Hi, I'm forecaster Andrew Fleck with Geo-Environmental Atmosphere, and what I'd really like to do with these long-range videos is make them shorter but add a heck of a punch of explanation with them. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to give two analogs that are very comparable to this current December 2011 season, and we're going to kind of compare and contrast. Why I've picked these analogs is because they occurred during a negative PDO year and a La Nina year. And so the current of 2011 so far this winter season is of a negative PDO and a La Nina season. So first I'm going to show you the analog of 1951 and 52 and where the coldest and warmest of weather occurred. Now, the first image here that I will illustrate is of December 1951. We had a block here south of Alaska. We had the coldest air mushing its way for the central and western United States. But as for the east and that southern half, much of it was mild, much of it was calm. I also want to mention that there's a bit of elongated trough here branching off the mainstream of coldest air, and I'm going to explain that probably at the end of this video. So it's very important that we remember this, and I'll highlight this throughout the analogs. Then in January of 1952, we had that same block sitting there, but more colder air penetrated over the west, and specifically the northwest, and continuous amounts of mild and calmer weather occurred over the east. Then, as February occurred for 1952, colder air and stormier weather occurred and entered into the western United States and exited out of the eastern United States. That's what happened during 51 and 52. Now I want to show you 71 and 72. You're going to notice that there's quite a few similarities. We have the blocking south of Alaska. We have the colder air coming into here of the central and western United States, and a calmer and more mild block over the east and the south. Again, still you have that elongated trough here hanging off the mainstream jet. Very important thing that I will, like I said, explain later in the video. That was for December of 1971. And then, of course, January 1972, we still had that block there. More of the coldest air penetrated over the northern half of the United States, the northwest, the northern plains, the Great Lakes, but still pretty warm, pretty mild, very calm over the east and the southeast, similar to what 51 and 52 showed. But then, just like 51 and 52, we had colder and stormier weather enter from the west, create a trough, and exit out of the east. So what I feel is very interesting about these two are they occurred on both negative PDOs and both La Nina seasons. Both had about the same outcome, being a very flip-flop winter for December across the east, generally warm for the January part of the east, and then winter kind of came back in February. But rather, January and February have not occurred for the 2011-2012 season. We want to look at December, and that was that cold air hanging over the west, the northern half of the United States, being calm, being a little warm over the east. So let's go and look at the current heights for so far this December month of 2011. And what you're going to notice here is that we have that block hinting over here south of Alaska, and we don't have any real cold air coming through or coming south yet. We do have a block being over here like 51 and 71 had, calmer and more mild weather over the east. Sure, there's been some snows of flurries, snow showers, but there hasn't been the snowstorm. There hasn't been the consistent cold. That's what we're aiming out here. And because of that, again, we haven't had really any of the majority of the northern jet pushed down into the country. And that's hanging all up in here in this darker blue. Now you're going to ask yourself, what about this darker blue here? Well, this is what I've been explaining along with the past analogs, if you remember what I said. Hang on to this area here over the southwest where the analog of 51 and 71 both had an elongated trough sitting there. Well, because of this, it has a very interesting reason to why the east has been warm, it's been mild, because this has created both the northern and southern jet streams to separate each other. And that has basically prevented the colder air, the snowier weather, to permit itself into the United States. So I'll kind of show you that here with some of the weather models we have. This was a computer model for this weekend. Again, you have the same thing here. An upper level enclosed low over the southwest, the northern jet stream predominantly hanging up here across the northern United States. Late next week for the beginning of your holiday season, you have basically the northern jet hanging up here. And you still have that upper level enclosed low being across the southwest here. That being the northern jet up here, the southern branch, both split. When those two come together, that's when the colder air can dominate, can push south, can push this block in here across the southeast, southward, and that would allow more troughing, more of that colder air not just sitting over the western United States to stay there, but also to permit from west to east. And maybe that doesn't happen consistent for the rest of December. Maybe it doesn't happen toward January, but maybe, just maybe February. But we need to focus on what's occurring now, and we have basically a blank split jet of the northern and southern streams. But now there is hope, because the computer model is showing that toward the end of the month of December, we don't have what? We don't have an upper level enclosed low over the southwest United States. Instead, we have a normal stream from the northern jet coming into the west, digging into the southeast, and forming quite a trough in here, inviting all of this colder air into the upper plains and into the east. What does that say? Well, when you have colder air, you can also have storms. That's the later half of December and early January. So what I hoped to gather from you guys was information of showing you that there's a few things that are making this pattern what it is because of the small things such as an upper level enclosed low or some of the blocking schemes, but there is hope. If that can continue to absorb itself, that southern jet back into the northern, that'll be strong enough to bring the cold air down with the right blocking setup. And something like this will become similar and hopefully familiar toward the end of December and January. So that's all I have for you. I hope you like the analogs. They made quite some sense, being that those years occurred on negative PDO years and a La Nina year, and so as 2011 so far in December and probably into the rest of January and February will also be a negative PDO and La Nina. So that's the comparisons we're going to make here. You guys can decide, but all I'm saying is maybe not now, maybe not even January, maybe February, or maybe even the end of December are going to be those times for the East to maybe get lucky. So I'm Andrew Fleck for Geoenvironmental Atmosphere, signing off. We'll talk to you soon again.